Hey, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Ariels podcast, now with the Digit Network. Thanks so much for tuning in. I cannot believe this, but this is season 5. So thanks to you. This is a thriving podcast, reaching the corners of the world, all the women out there, and I'm so excited and proud to be with you. If you haven't listened to the Artist Entrepreneur podcast, my new podcast with Noah Doc and Amanda Ritchie, please check it out. It's going to be on this feed on Thursdays. We're 3 artists navigating our businesses. We have so much fun. Please check it out. It'll be in your inbox on Thursdays. And just announced September 26th to the 28th, I'll be at NECA, the New England Center for Circus Arts, for an 11-hour weekend silks immersion. So it's a retreat-esque without being a full retreat. And I'd love to see you there. It's picturesque Vermont. My flagship course, beginner to intermediate aerial silks, online for anybody in the world. And of course, Aero Rehab, which is meant to be the bridge between PT and your favorite aero class. I'm teaching all over the place this year. Austin, Oaxaca, Ohio, and DC this summer. And of course, NECA in the fall. Let's get started. So listeners, Jenifer sent me this list of her story, and I'm like, oh my God, this could cover like 5 podcasts, everything.
Oh boy.
You have to talk about, you're like the perfect candidate for this podcast because it's like everything. If you would introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about your family, your aerial practice, what you do during the day. Just give us a little bit of a intro.
Yeah, my name is Jenifer Einstein. I've been doing aerial coming up on about 10 years. I taught from 2018 to last December when our studio closed, with a few interruptions along the way. In my day-to-day, at the start of doing aerial, I was a neuroscience researcher and a PhD student. I've since graduated from that program, so I'm a research and development scientist for an infectious disease development company.
Wow, smarty pants. Are you excited to be done with school?
Oh my gosh, so excited. It's been like 2.5, coming up on almost 2 years, actually, this summer. It was great. It took a while for it to sink in, I'd say. It still feels a little sometimes.
And what is the big goal for having that? Did you want to teach eventually, or are you excited to research?
When I started, I wanted to teach. I was really interested in neuroscience for a long time. And I just was fascinated with how the brain and nervous system works, and really particularly interested in learning and the molecular mechanisms of that. But as I spent more time in the academic environment, I didn't have the best graduate school experience, which, a lot of people have, negative doctorate experiences. So I just wasn't really interested in pursuing that avenue after a while, although I loved teaching. I didn't get a lot of chance to teach in graduate school, but I got a lot of opportunities to teach aerial circus, which was nothing I ever planned on or expected. And I was really grateful to have that during graduate school as a way to kind of disconnect from what I was doing during the day.
Yeah. And do you still teach now?
No, our studio was doing pretty well before COVID, and then COVID closed things down. And then we got back going and we're doing okay. And then the following year, there was a fire at the apartment building adjacent to our shop strip where our studio was.
Oh, God.
And it damaged our building. And so we lost our facility. And our owner was able to find an arts warehouse where we were able to get some rig points and rent some time, and kind of limped the studio along for a few more years. But the community was kind of not it wasn't self-sustaining anymore. And so, mid to late last year, the owners decided that they were also getting older. It was always a recreational aerial studio. So we weren't doing professional shows or anything like that. Before COVID, we would do like one big show where we rented a theater out once a year and put all that together. But I think we typically lost money on that. So, and then after COVID, we never recovered, especially, and after the fire, it was all downhill after that. So I haven't been teaching since December. I got pregnant. I found out I was pregnant on Christmas Eve. So I'm not really pursuing teaching right now. I have, a full-time job and a 3-year-old and another on the way. So I feel like that's enough to keep me busy for a while with my own personal aerial practice. And I had gotten a little bit burnt out on teaching because of just the decline of the studio over time and the difficulty keeping students. And so it's kind of actually nice to return to a personal practice and take classes again and kind of do my own thing for a little while. Because I was making a little bit of money from teaching, but it was never something that I was planning on pursuing in a professional capacity. So,
yeah. There's a lot of people in your position where it's like you do it a couple hours a week. It's for your health. It's for your mental health, but it's not, like for me, I'm a professional teacher and that's how I make all of my money, which is a completely different ball of wax.
I would love to do that if I had started it when I was younger, before I was as committed to my science career as I am now. But I make a very reasonable salary.
Oh yeah.
So I think I'm going to stick with that and keep the area for my fun side of life.
Oh my God! If I had it in me to be a neuroscientist, I would do it too. Jenifer, where are you in the world?
I am in Salt Lake Valley. So I work at the north end of Salt Lake Valley, but I live at the southern end.
Wait, are you in Utah? Wait.
Yes, Utah.
Okay. And are you from there?
No, I'm a transplant. I'm from the East Coast. He came out here for a business trip and fell in love with Utah, the mountains and the outdoor opportunities. And so we moved out here in 2015. We do a lot of camping and hiking and wandering into the great unknown.
Okay, let's go into your story with your pregnancies and your loss. And can you start from the beginning? Did you guys want to start a family? Was it family planning?
Yeah. We always had planned to have some children. 2 was the maximum we were planning on. But I wanted to pursue my career, and we weren't really ready. So we waited a while. I was in graduate school. And I kind of was like, okay, towards the end of graduate school, we can try to do the kid thing. And so that's what we ended up doing. In 2021, I had an IUD for like 10 years. I got that out. I think I maybe had 1 period and got pregnant. That pregnancy was not successful. Luckily for me, I'm really grateful that it was a first trimester loss, because I know it's so challenging, the further you get along,
yes.
to start bonding and to lose a baby later. But I got through that, and then I got pregnant the next summer with my daughter, who was born in February of 2022.
You mentioned something about your daughter in the text. Was it her?
After she was born?
Yes.
So I had gestational hypertension. I had they had been measuring my blood pressure throughout pregnancy, and it always ended up a little high, but they always kind of brushed it off like, oh, it's white coat syndrome. I was always running to a prenatal appointment from an experiment and like in a rush. And so they didn't really think about it. But then at 39.
Why is it white coat? What does that mean?
That's what they call it when people have anxiety and it causes their blood pressure to be artificially high in the presence of the doctor.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think that's what it was. I was in graduate school and I was stressed, and I don't have a history of depression, but if anything's going to depress you, graduate school will. And so I think I was low level depressed, getting throughout my pregnancy and also rushing around. And so I did have gestational hypertension, and they just didn't realize it until the end, or they didn't diagnose it. And I had one morning where I woke up right before I was 39 weeks, and I was like, my underwear were damp. I thought maybe my water was broken. I didn't feel, nothing was wrong. Nothing felt off or anything, but I just sent my midwife group a message and was like, hey, this happened. Also, here are my last several blood pressure readings. They seem a little high. And so they wanted me to come into the prenatal ER later that day and get checked on. They checked to make sure that my water wasn't broken. They did what I think it's called a snowflake test or something like that. I don't remember the technical word, but they can tell if it's amniotic fluid or other things. Right, and it makes a pattern on a slide. But they were really concerned about my blood pressure, because even just sitting there resting, I was still spiking pretty high. So they made me stay there a few hours. They wanted to keep me longer for observation, but I was a graduate student and I had left a protein gel running in the lab. And so I was like, well, let me leave and go finish my experiment, and I'll come back tonight and then I can let you monitor me. So I ran back to the lab and finished my experiment for 6 or 7 hours, and then went back to the gestational or the prenatal ER. And I still had high blood pressure. And so they measured my liver enzymes. They were fine, but they were like, well, you're 38, we're a little nervous. It could progress into preeclampsia. And the placenta works like a positive feedback loop, driving blood pressure. So if it's already high, then tomorrow it could spike even higher, and it could cause a whole chemical cascade. And I'm studying neuroscience and learning and memory and parts of the hippocampus. I know all about positive feedback loops and how they can go out of control. And so I get really scared about what they're saying, and I, believe them, and I'm like, and they want to induce. So I'm like, okay, fine. I guess we should induce. They're like, it's no worse for the baby. The baby's as developed as she needs to be. But it could be really dangerous for you if you, wait until your due date in another week and you develop preeclampsia and get sick. And I was like, well, I don't really want to chance my health. And so I let them induce me. I called my husband, told him I had packed the go bag. So he grabbed it and brought it up to the hospital, and they admitted me and tried to induce me first with a balloon, and then with misoprostol, a couple doses. I guess I dilated a little bit, but not much. I think the next day they started me on Pitocin, and I didn't dilate. I didn't want an epidural. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to be able to, that wasn't something that was part of my birth plan. My goal was no epidural. They had a birthing pool in the maternity ward. I was hoping to, have birth and give birth in that. But it wasn't happening. So I think they had me on Pitocin for, over 16 hours, which point, and I was falling asleep. And when I because I had at that point been in the hospital for 2 days, and they're just constantly interrupting you. So I was exhausted, and I would fall asleep, and my I would stop breathing and my blood pressure would drop and all the alarms would go off and they'd freak out and come back in. And so after a while, at some point they're like, okay, well, how about, we'll give you an epidural, or we will, and then maybe you can sleep and maybe you'll dilate the next day. Or we can give you a spinal tap and do a C-section. And I was just so exhausted that I didn't know if I could keep going. So I was like, okay, well, let's do this spinal tap and C-section.
So at this point, were you also in pain from all the Pitocin?
I mean, presumably, it was definitely like beating my body. I was in constant contractions, and they had amped me up to just about as high of a level of Pitocin as they said was their upper range. I think that they could go to like 40 milligrams per whatever volume. But I was at like 36 or something. It was like, and they had broken my water at some point to try to help induce things further. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working. I was early. I wasn't ready to give birth. My body didn't think it was ready either. So it wasn't happening. So we did the C-section. And how that relates to my daughter's outcome is she was early. She was a week early. And when they ended up testing her, she had really high bilirubin, which is super common in babies that come early. So bilirubin is part of the process, like it's a precursor to creating heme and red blood cells, and it is it's a breakdown byproduct of heme, which is the chemical that binds iron in your red blood cells. And so if that breakdown product is toxic, and for a newborn, their liver is still just coming online. So if it gets overloaded with all these toxic byproducts, the liver can't work fast enough to remove them, because they're still working on getting going. And and that's why you'll hear about neonatal jaundice, which is where babies are yellow. And it's because of an accumulation of bilirubin in their skin. The old wives' treatment is to put the baby in the sun, or like my mother-in-law joked that she put my husband on the windowsill and gave him a little sunburn on his bottom. But the modern strategy is to do blue light therapy, which can be done in neonatal intensive care. Luckily, we were out of the hospital already, and the pediatrician that we saw, who figured this out when my daughter was like 3 days old or something, who did the blood test that detected it, she hooked us up with an outpatient a service that delivered a blue light blanket to our house. And so we put little goggles on her and wrapped her in this little blue blanket, and a few hours at a time between nursing sessions and diapers, and which doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but the hormone swings post birth were hitting hard, and it seemed like the most horrible thing in the world at the time to me. And I was like, oh no, she's, which in retrospect, there's so many worse things that can go wrong, but it's so hard to see your little one wrapped up in a weird blue blanket with little goggles on. And She was totally fine. And she pretty much just fell asleep whenever we put her in it. It was like it warmed her up. You just had to check their temperature and make sure they weren't overheating and whatnot. But
no, it's scary if there's anything going wrong. You know what I'm saying? Especially your first kid. Like, I only have one kid, but like my little bean got a pretty bad, like, just like congestion when she was like a week or two old.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my God, it sent my like, I had postpartum anxiety already, but like it sent it through the roof. Now, would you categorize your birth experience with your first as traumatic to you?
Not for me. But I think I have a high level of resilience in the grand scheme of the population.
Okay.
It takes a lot to really traumatize me. It'd have to be really extreme. It definitely wasn't my desired birth plan. It was basically the opposite of my birth plan. But I wouldn't go so far as to call it traumatic. And I feel like some guilt about choosing to have a C-section at that point, like, or even choosing to let them induce me. But at the same time, the outcomes were all positive, other than having a C-section. And I still recovered well. I had her at like 10:30 or 11:30 at night. And the next morning I was able to get out of bed and, with some assistance and get on my feet and walk to the bathroom and like move around a little bit. And I know some people are, entirely immobilized. So I'm really grateful for my body doing what it was able to do. So it could have been a lot worse, I feel like, and everybody's healthy.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up. Like, do you think perhaps it's because you've seen the whole gamut of things that your expectations are different than like just a woman coming into the hospital? She doesn't really have, like any experience in a hospital. You know what I'm saying? Do you think it's because of that?
I think maybe I have like a really, strong understanding of science, and I dig into molecular mechanisms of things. And I really, I would have actually preferred to dig more into the pregnancy process in my first pregnancy than I actually did. But I was kind of so burnt out from graduate school that I didn't have as much mental bandwidth as I would have liked to contribute in that area. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot, even more afterwards, now that I'm able to apply to my current pregnancy than I knew then. But hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah. So listeners, the Easter egg here is that Jenifer is pregnant currently. So now your daughter's how? Today. Yes. So how old is your kid now?
3. She turned 3 in February.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, how many weeks are you in now?
23 weeks.
23 weeks. Okay. So how do you feel today?
I feel great. I'm still doing aerial classes twice a week. I definitely can't do everything. It's funny to hear the instructors talk about aerial progressions when I know I'm actively in regression.
Yes.
Yes. Nope, can't do those dynamic beats on rope anymore and hop over into that fun layout. But I'm still doing things and getting up there. I'm not having any abdominal separation or coning yet. So I'm still attempting to invert to varying degrees of success, of course. Piking is pretty challenging, basically impossible, but
yeah. Piking is hard anyway. Were you, would you characterize yourself as like strong for you before you're pregnant this time around?
I would say I was stronger the last time.
Okay.
Because at that point, I didn't have anybody. I mean, I had my husband to get home to, but I didn't have anybody that I felt guilty about not being home for. so I was going to the aerial studio pretty regularly and had pretty strong training between teaching and my own personal practice. Before COVID, it was like, 4 to 7 days a week sometimes, depending on if we had a show or something coming up.
Wow.
After COVID, it never really came back to that level, but I still was stronger than I was after I was pregnant. This one, I had a miscarriage last summer also. So I had already had a wind down last summer, and I didn't entirely come back from for this pregnancy. But I've been trying to stay pretty regular. It just helps keep me sane to have some movement in my life on a regular basis.
Yeah. So you had a loss before this pregnancy. Was it also early?
Yes, thank goodness. Although it was a little more traumatic, I would say, than the previous one, because the first one we never detected a heartbeat, and it was like 8 or something like that. This one we detected a heartbeat, so we kind of thought we were home free, and then we didn't get a sonogram appointment right away because there was a lot of scheduling. I think they got backed up because of the 4th of July or something. So we didn't end up getting an appointment to like confirm everything until 12 weeks. And that's when we found out that there was no longer a heartbeat. And so we had already done genetic testing and gotten, there's low risk of chromosomal abnormalities and it's a girl. And then we went in for the sonogram, and it wasn't a viable embryo. So that was really disappointing. But at the same time, that baby would have been born the same week or within a week of my first daughter's birthday. So maybe it's better to not have their birthdays right on top of each other. And I'm just really grateful that nature is taking care of these things for me. I understand biology and development, and I'm like, man, it's so complicated. It's incredible that we get babies in the end at all sometimes, with how many things are going on at so many different levels.
I feel like people in the medical profession, at least the ones I've talked to, like from an anecdotal standpoint, like statistically, are less traumatized by things because you just know more. You know more. And it really helps. Also, do you find yourself doing this? I'm a daughter of a doctor. My dad is a retired cardiologist. And in my household, there'd have to be a 10-alarm fire for them to bring me to the doctor.
Oh,
yeah. You know what I'm saying? Do you guys experience that?
Yeah. Oh, my husband is famous for gluing himself back together. I've been to the doctor more with my daughter, just, out of paranoia and new parenting and wanting to make sure that I'm doing the right things, and not always, and because before she could talk, I couldn't tell necessarily what was going on. But now that she's getting older and she can talk and tell me what's going on, and I can kind of figure out things I've gone to the doctor more for prenatal care than I ever did in my entire life.
And did you, in your family before, were there any scientists or doctors in your family when you were growing up?
No, no, my dad's kind of like a hippie seller construction worker in the Caribbean, and he lives on a sailboat and has for over 30 years. And my mom has also more construction. She ran her own log cabin business for until the 2008 HOusing crisis. And then she's working for a company that builds different, I think, HVAC systems and whatnot now. So no, not really. I mean, my grandfather had a PhD, but he was in business. So not any overt scientists in the family, but everybody's really intelligent and critical thinkers and curious about the world. So, and my dad reads a lot of science. He really liked it when I was, when I was in graduate school, and I would call him and try to explain to him what I was doing.
Well, here's to hoping that maybe my Bean will become a mathematician because she has a dancer mom and a musician father. You never know. Sometimes they go in a different direction. Okay, so, all right. So you're pregnant. Okay, so how was your first trimester? Did you experience all the things?
Not like overt throwing up, but lots of nausea and difficulty, like low appetite, difficulty eating, and just general queasiness, and breast tenderness and those sorts of things. But then I got to like 14 weeks and I just felt amazing. Oh, and I had a low back injury from a little over a year ago. And during the first trimester, that was a little rough. I had been going to PT for that for a while. And the PT was like, okay, the first trimester will probably be pretty rough, but then the second trimester, you'll probably feel really great. And she was right. I feel amazing. My back, I can still adjust it and like feel the ligaments and whatnot shift and hear like some little clicks and stuff, but it feels great. So other than heartburn and I had heartburn with my first daughter, but I felt like it didn't start until the beginning of the third trimester. And this time it was like 16 weeks right away. Like I just started getting heartburn pretty regularly, and I'm not the largest human, so it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Heartburn sucks. I have acid reflux, and it's like, you really have to plan your life around it. Like when you eat compared to when you sleep. When you eat compared to when you do yoga, all the things.
Yeah, I have Tums everywhere. They're just populated about. I haven't gotten to the point where I need to take like a daily suppressant.
Okay, so you said in your message to me that your placenta is overlapping your C-section scar. Now, this is the first time this topic has come up, and I've had this podcast for 5 years, so it's always interesting when this shit comes up. I had a low-lying placenta, not completely covering the cervix, but very close to it. Previa, right? Previa. So I don't know. Is it like technically previa? It's only technically previa if it's covering the cervix. Am I wrong about that?
I think that's the most extreme form, but I have a friend who's due like 1 week in front of me, and she has previa. So I was looking into it recently. It's highly, I think it's previa, even if it's
just low
only
lying.
Slightly over, but or if it's like pretty adjacent. I was watching them when they did my 20-week anatomy exam, and I was nervous because my friend had just gone through finding out about it, that my placenta looked like it was really freaking close to my cervix. But it wasn't not close enough to be concerned about. So not previa, and it's funny because I had, with the first earlier sonogram, the tech had mentioned, they'll be able to see if your placenta's over your C-section scar. And I was like, oh, is that a problem? And they're like, oh yeah. And so I didn't really do the research, but I kind of thought about it, and I was like, oh, it must be because then the placenta doesn't make as good of a connection with the uterine wall, and then, it's dangerous for the baby. That's not the problem at all. When I actually did the research after actually finding it out at 20 weeks that I actually have my placenta over my cervix, it's actually the opposite. The placenta will integrate into this C-section scar.
Oh.
And sometimes it'll grow through part of the placental wall, or all the way through the placenta, or through the uterine wall, or all the way through the uterus to the like exterior. And then when you go to give birth, if it's still hanging out and it's super attached to the uterine wall, it can't detach like it's supposed to. And so what they're worried about is hemorrhage when you're giving birth.
Oh, and that doesn't matter. Oh, it matters if you have a C-section on, because if anything happens to it, then you have to have surgery. No?
Yeah. So so what they are saying is, I'm 42. I just turned 42 last week. So I already was at a higher rate of keeping an eye on me because of my age. But they're going to do another sonogram after 32 weeks to look and see if the placenta has kind of moved away from the C-section scar as everything has grown and stretched and pulled away from each other. And if it hasn't, then I might have to do another C-section, which I'm really hoping to not do. Right. I didn't experience real labor or real, I know that it sounds weird to want that, but I'd like to know what the natural process is like. So I was really hoping for a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean section, yes. Which they have a pretty high rate of success with the maternity ward where I'm going here. So that everybody seems optimistic at this point, but you know how things change as they get more dramatic towards the end. We'll see what actually happens. It sounds like if it's still over the C-section scar with my later sonogram, I'll just get a specific consult with a doctor that specializes in VBAC. Right now, I am in a general midwife group. So it's like 20 different PhD midwives and RNs that are specialized in midwifery. And I can see any of them throughout my pregnancy. And then whoever is on call at the time when I'm in labor will be who's there when I'm giving birth. But if I have something more complicated, they'll refer me to an OB.
That sounds amazing to have a network of midwives. Like, is that all over the country? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. This is something specific at the University of Utah that I was able to find out about during my last pregnancy. Actually, one of my aerial students at the time is one of the midwives. And so she recommended the group when I had mentioned that I was trying to get pregnant. And then once I was pregnant, that was who I went to. And yeah, I think it's really cool. It's, a group of really highly educated women with a lot of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that sounds...
I would have loved to have done like an at-home midwife birth. My mom had my youngest brother at home when I was a teenager, but my husband was really, the whole thought was not something he was on board with.
Is there a medical term for when the placenta grows into the C-section scar? Is there?
There definitely is. I don't remember it offhand, but I can probably figure it out. Placenta accretia.
Oh my God. Say it again.
Accretia, Accreta. The least extreme version is placenta accretia. If it's like partway through the uterine wall, it's called incretia. And then if it's all the way through the uterine wall, it's percretia.
And you don't know, you're going to have to just...
There's no way they can tell that part.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to just like go through your pregnancy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think in the course of the pregnancy, it's not dangerous. It becomes dangerous during the birthing process.
Okay.
If placenta can't properly disassociate from the uterus, then it's going to cause some difficulty because it's supposed to detach.
Yeah, and there's a lot of blood. It's all blood.
There's a lot of blood. Exactly.
It's a lot of blood. And tell me, Is there any case that the mother doesn't give birth to the placenta? It always.
It's got to come out one way or another.
Out.
If it doesn't come out naturally, then they got to go in and get it out because it can get infected and cause, it can't stay.
And so are they able to do that without cutting into you?
I don't know.
Okay. I figured you'd be the person to ask.
But if they probably not, they probably would have to do it surgically if it didn't. I mean, you could reach in there, but then you're probably going to be like ripping it out, and that's going to cause a lot of damage. And then they're going to have to cauterize it. So most likely they're going to have to do some sort of C-section or a D&C. And well, I mean, you're already dilated, but some sort of postnatal treatment in order to get it out. It can't hang out.
Okay. So does this make you anxious or no?
Not really. Because it just makes me a little disappointed that I might not be able to that I might have to have another C-section.
Right.
But I've already had a C-section and it wasn't that bad. I have to, after being in the hospital and in labor for two or 3 days or however long it was, I felt like $1 million when that spinal tap kicked in. It was amazing. I felt great. So and I healed pretty well. I did my postpartum checkup at 3 weeks, and the midwife said I could return to physical activity. I'm not sure that she knew what I thought of as physical activity. I wasn't.
Yeah, some people have different definitions of that. We for sure do.
But I started off, I went back to the studio the next day, brought my baby, and, she was hanging out on the floor on a blanket, and I nursed her while I was there and did some Floreal and rolled around on the floor and got my hands on some fabrics, even if I wasn't lifting myself yet or anything, but baby steps.
Yeah, I love this. Okay. So, it's called TOLAC until it's a VBAC, right? I know that from my many years of doing this.
I don't actually know that TOLAC.
TOLAC is trial 4 VBAC. It's just the term that they use. And I only know things because people tell me them on this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
So what is it like as well to be, I can't imagine what it's like to be pregnant and also take care of a toddler.
Well, I'm married and we have childcare. I didn't have childcare for the first month when I went back to graduate school, and then because that was I didn't look for childcare until I'd already given birth, which was silly in retrospect, but I just didn't have the mental bandwidth to do so. Right. Luckily I had a friend who watched her, but we now have childcare. And so, I drop her off in the morning. On the weekends, she asks to go to daycare. She loves all of her friends and around. And I think she's better off in daycare. And then I don't know that I could keep her busy enough, just myself.
But I guess the thing is, so it's wonderful that you have daycare, but you're also you're working full time. Probably now you're fine, but the first trimester, were you just was it hard? You're just tired, right?
Before it's yeah. I was definitely it was hard to tell. For me, I couldn't tell if I don't know. Saying that I was depressed would be a strong way to phrase it. I don't think I was clinically depressed, but I definitely was down. But I don't know if it was the pregnancy hormones or being in graduate school again. So it's hard to tell. It was definitely hard, and it was kind of a blur for a while. But I have a really, really involved partner, and that helps a lot. And now, the further as time goes along, he kind of even gets better and better at figuring out how to help. So he picks my daughter up after he gets out of work, and sometimes I work later, or sometimes I go to the aerial studio for a few hours, and then I come home, eat dinner, and then I do bedtime because I'm tired or ready to kind of wind down anyway. I like reading a book with her, and then getting her to bed, and then either I go to bed, or if I'm awake, I'll do some prenatal exercises or lays around a bit. But I'm doing okay so far. I know it's going to get harder in the coming weeks. I'm definitely slowing down, but I'm doing okay. I'm really lucky. My body's allowing me to keep doing things for now. So
yeah, we actually, I haven't had a lot of women on here recently who are pregnant in their 40s. I was one of those people. She came out of me when I was 42. And I didn't know any different because that's the only pregnancy. But for you, do you feel like there's a big difference between the first and the second because of your age or no?
I might, maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm a little lower energy. But again, I'm not in graduate school this time. I'm in a much healthier mental state than I was during my first pregnancy. I'm in a much healthier work environment. Everybody around me is really supportive. There's a bunch of other women that are also pregnant at work and, planning on going on maternity leave. And with my first maternity, I was taking a break from grad school, which meant I was going to have to recover that time or work harder in order to make, there wasn't any progress happening on my project while I was, on maternity. And there was also pressure from my advisor at the time to still kind of do stuff, which I didn't have the capacity to do in that fourth trimester. And so I had some guilt around not working. So even though it was my maternity, I felt guilty because that's just how a science PhD works. You feel guilty whenever you're not working. And I don't feel like that now. My work environment is super supportive. People are really respectful of PTO and maternity leave. And when you're gone, they don't really expect you to be thinking about work the way it was during my first pregnancy. So it's hard. I feel I'm probably a lower energy level than I was then, but I'm in a better mental space. So
I was talking to my client this morning about the tax on women, the overall tax on women that we incur for being women, how much period products cost every month, how it affects us in our professional lives when we're trying to have.
Mommy, how much minutes?
Hey, I'm gonna have to edit all of you out.
How many minutes?
5 minutes or less.
No.
She does really good recently, but she knows when an hour, and when at an hour she's like, what is happening and why isn't this over? Yeah, the tax on women and how it affects us our entire lives. Okay. Hey. Okay, Jenifer, I always ask for a piece of advice. Give us a piece of advice, any piece of advice, but then also for those women who have gone through miscarriage, maybe a piece of advice because you've done it twice. And come out the other end.
You know what? 30% of all pregnancies end before the first trimester ends. And I think it's really important to keep in mind that it's not you, it's, random genetics and random recombination. And if that baby didn't, pass away, or if it did make it, it might be really, really unhealthy and have a really poor quality of life. And, I think it's better to, it doesn't necessarily make it any easier emotionally, but maybe it's better to wait for a healthy baby to happen. And as hard as it is to go through that, it can happen in the future, hopefully, for a lot of people. What 1 or 2 miscarriages is not uncommon. And I really wish that people would talk about it more, because it's kind of a fact of life. It happens all the time. And sometimes it happens before you even know you're pregnant. And you don't need, your period's like only 3 or 4 days late or something. And I have a really, really regular cycle. So I knew I was pregnant before my period was even due this time. And I felt sick like the day I got my positive pregnancy test, but that's not the case for everybody. And, just let the system take care of itself. It's got to do what it's got to do. There's no forcing it.
Yeah, it's so hard. I just had a friend have a loss in the first trimester, and it's just so hard when I've watched my friends go through even what would be considered a chemical pregnancy, and but if they know already, it's so different. I was very grateful that I wasn't checking, because we weren't trying that hard. So I could have had 3 or 4 chemical pregnancies that I didn't have to go through the emotional loss of, because I didn't know. So I think that's and the people who are more engaged in the science part of it, the doctors that I've talked to who are also women having babies, I feel like it's very important to understand the statistics, because it's not as hard if you have a very deep understanding that it's actually so difficult to make a baby, actually, right?
So difficult. Maybe a 24 to 48 hour period once a month. Like, you got to time it just right. Yeah. Like I mean, I'm a scientist, so I really enjoyed testing my hormones, being like, oh, there's my LH spike. But that's tedious and annoying for a lot of people. But yeah, it's really hard. But it's also just part of the process, and don't get focused on it. And just because you found out you're pregnant, just maybe temper your emotions a little bit until there is a heartbeat. Like, I just didn't, especially with this like current pregnancy, don't count on anything until you've made it past that first trimester. And even then, I had friends who didn't find out until their 20-week anatomy that everything they had all kinds of neurological and heart defects.
Right.
And they were in Utah. And so they had to travel in order, like they made the choice to terminate, and they had to travel to Colorado in order to, so like it makes it even that much more difficult. So just, temper your emotions, but it's part of it. It's part of the process of having children.
Yes. I thank you for your time.
Yeah.
We call you Dr. Jen. Do you go by that?
Yeah, and I am. Yeah. I'm not a medical doctor, PhD doctor, but yeah, technically.
I thank you for your time. And before you go, we always have to say goodbye to the bean, because she gets upset if we don't. Come here.
Yeah.
Come here. Put your face in here.
Bye.
Bye, Bean.
Such a depressed goodbye. Bye. My listeners, if you would honor me with a 5-star rating and review, I would appreciate it forever. It is the hardest thing about being a podcaster is to get your podcast out to the people who want to listen. So the best way to do that is to have a good star rating and just ride that algorithm. So I really appreciate if you guys would just open the Apple app and leave me a review. It makes such a difference. I appreciate you. I also have Greener Grass with Digitent Podcasts with my friend Kelly McVeigh. If you want to hear my voice twice a week, it's there for you. It's light, it's heartfelt, and we bring on some really amazing guests. All right, my friends, over and out. This is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist.